All right, let's get right into it. We're breaking down Malaysia's 2026 budget. This isn't just a bunch of numbers. It's a huge plan that's supposed to guide the country through some choppy economic waters and get it ready for the future. We're going to unpack what it all means for the nation, and more importantly, for you. So, you've probably heard the headline number, a massive, record-breaking budget of 419.2 billion ringgit. It sounds enormous, right? But what does a number that big actually translate to? What does it mean for your job, for your family, and for the money in your pocket? Here's our game plan for today. First, we'll tackle that huge 419.2 billion ringgit plan to understand the big picture. Then, we'll look at how the budget is supposed to fire up the economy. After that, and this is the part you've been waiting for, we'll get into what's in it for your wallet. And finally, we'll zoom out and see how this all fits into Malaysia's long-term vision. Okay, first things first. Let's try to get our heads around the sheer size of this budget and what the government is trying to achieve with all this money in 2026. So at 419.2 billion, this is officially the biggest budget in Malaysian history. We're talking more than 7 billion ringgit higher than last year. This tells you the government is planning to spend big, both on keeping public services running smoothly and on kicking off some major projects for the country's future, even with the global economy looking a little shaky. Now, that huge number is split into two main buckets. The biggest slice, about 81% of the pie, is for operating expenditure. You can think of this as the money needed to keep the country's lights on day to day. Things like salaries for civil servants, subsidies, and just running the government. The other 19%? That's development expenditure. This is the exciting part. It's the investment in our future. We're talking new infrastructure, tech upgrades, and education projects. This table really shows you the tightrope the government has to walk. You see, the goal is to bring in more money, that's total revenue, while also shrinking the national debt, which is that fiscal deficit number. They're aiming to bring the deficit down from 3.8% to 3.5%. And they have to do all of this while the economy is expected to grow steadily, but not exactly explode. It's a real balancing act. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about how this budget plans to actually fuel the economy. Because this isn't happening in a bubble. There are some serious international pressures that Malaysia has to deal with. And one of the biggest of those pressures? Trade tensions with the United States. This timeline really lays it out. You can see how, throughout 2025, a series of tariff announcements created a ton of uncertainty for Malaysian businesses that sell their products to the U.S. market. It all came to a head in August when those new rates kicked in. And we're not talking about a small bump in the road here. The impact is pretty serious. The Ministry of Finance actually calculated it. These tariffs are expected to shave off 0.76 percentage points from Malaysia's GDP in 2026. That's a direct hit on the country's economic growth engine. So, what's the game plan to fight back? Well, the budget is making some really targeted strategic investments. Money is flowing into high-growth areas, like the Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone, to supercharge regional trade. There's also a huge RM550 million push into the super-important semiconductor industry. And, of course, a massive tourism drive with Visit Malaysia 2026, alongside investments in future-proof industries like AI and the digital economy. Okay, this is the part I know you've been waiting for. Let's break down exactly how this massive budget is going to affect you, your family, and your bank account. A huge piece of this budget is putting cash directly into people's hands to help with the rising cost of living. The SARA program is a big one. 9 million eligible Malaysians are set to get 100 ringgit a month. But for the 1 million most vulnerable households, the ones registered with eKase, that aid actually doubles to 200 ringgit a month. And they haven't forgotten about singles. Eligible individuals will get 50 ringgit monthly. And it's not just about direct cash. The budget is also pumping money into things that affect everyday family life. For starters, there's 150 ringgit back-to-school aid for every student. Pretty cool. There's also a new scheme where you can get up to 4,000 ringgit as a subsidy to scrap your old car. And for students, a massive 1.2 billion ringgit is going into the PTPTN fund to help with tuition and even offer loan exemptions for top students from lower-income families. The budget also offers some very specific help through the tax system. One really important change is for parents who have children with disabilities. The amount they can deduct from their taxes is being increased to 10,000 ringgit. It's a targeted move to give a bit more financial breathing room to those who really need it. And there's a whole lot more. For first-time homebuyers, the stamp duty exemption is being extended for another 2 years, which is great news. Taxi and e-hailing drivers are getting tax breaks on new national cars. Support also continues for key groups like fishermen who get a monthly allowance, and of course, there's the free My Rail Life Pass for students, kids, and people with disabilities.
So, we've looked at the big numbers and the direct benefits for your wallet. Now, let's zoom out. How does all of this fit into Malaysia's grand plan for the future?
This is super important to understand. This budget isn't just a one-off for 2026. It's actually the kickoff for a much bigger, 5-year strategy called the 13th Malaysia Plan, or RMK13. Basically, this budget is laying the foundation for where the country wants to be by the year 2030.
And the philosophy driving this whole thing is called Ekonomi Madani. It's a national framework with some seriously ambitious goals. We're talking about wanting Malaysia to become one of the top 30 economies in the world, to be in the top 12 for competitiveness, and really importantly, to make sure that workers get a bigger slice of the economic pie, aiming for 45% of GDP. These are huge goals.
From the government's perspective, the messaging is really positive. The chief secretary to the government summed it up by saying this will be a good news for everyone. Everyone is happy budget. So the clear intention is to make sure it's seen as inclusive and beneficial for all Malaysians.
And that really leaves us with the $1 million, or I guess the 419 billion ringgit question. This budget is trying to pull off a very tricky balancing act. It's giving out aid to help people right now, while also trying to push through ambitious reforms for the future. So can this mix really work? Is this the plan that will successfully navigate those global challenges and finally push Malaysia into the ranks of high-income nations? I guess we'll have to wait and see.